You think you know how the Empire State Building makes its money. It's an office tower, so it rents offices. Simple. You're wrong. The single most profitable thing inside one of the most famous office buildings on Earth isn't an office. It isn't a tenant. It's you, paying to ride an elevator to the top and look out a window. Here's the part that sounds made up. There was a year when this building's observation decks made around $60 million in profit, while the offices, the actual building full of desks and companies, made the owners little to nothing. The view at the top was carrying the entire skyscraper underneath it. And we only know that because of an accident. For most of its life, the Empire State Building's finances were a closely guarded secret. Then, around 2010, the owners wanted to take the building public, and to do that, they had to file a giant prospectus, hundreds of pages, that finally cracked the books open. Buried in there was the truth. Roughly 4 million people a year were riding to the top, and their tickets, not the offices, were the real profit center. So the thing you assumed was the business, the offices, was almost a rounding error. And the thing you assumed was a tourist gimmick, the deck, was the real engine. That's what this whole video is about. The Empire State Building isn't really an office building that happens to have a great view. It's a tourist attraction that happens to be wrapped in an office building. Let me show you how that machine actually works, and why it's both more profitable and more fragile than you'd ever guess. Start with the product, because that's what the deck is. A product. When you go up the Empire State Building, you're not renting anything. You're buying a single experience, one time, for one ticket. You walk in, you pass through the exhibits, you ride the elevators, you step out onto the deck, you take your photos, and you leave. Then the next person does the same thing, and the next. Over and over, all day, every day. Compare that to an office. An office tenant signs a lease, takes up a whole floor for 10 years, and pays a fixed rent. That income is steady, but it's capped. One company, one floor, one rent check. The deck has no cap. The same 2 floors at the top can be sold thousands of times a day. You're not leasing the space to one tenant. You're selling the same square footage to a brand new customer every few minutes. And here's the kicker. Those customers come from all over the world, and most of them only do it once in their life. So you never run out of new buyers. The whole planet is your tenant pool. That's the trick. Same floors, infinite tenants. Now let's talk about how big that trick got. For years, the observatory just printed money. At its peak, before the pandemic, ticket sales at the top of the Empire State Building hit around $131 million in a single year. From 2 floors, selling a view. And the people who run the building knew exactly what they had. So in 2019, they made a huge bet. They poured around $165 million into renovating the observation experience. New floor-to-ceiling windows at the top, a redesigned open-air deck, 10,000 square feet of brand new exhibit space that every single visitor now walks through on the way up. Think about why you'd spend $165 million on a deck. You don't do that for a side hobby. You do that when the deck is the crown jewel, when you understand that the experience itself is the product. And a better experience means a higher ticket price and a happier customer. They weren't fixing a tourist add-on. They were upgrading their best business, and then the pandemic hit, and the whole machine nearly stopped. Tourists vanished. Ticket sales collapsed. At one point, observatory sales were down around 74% from the year before. For a business built entirely on people showing up in person, that was the nightmare scenario. But watch how they responded, because it tells you how they really think. They didn't just wait for crowds to come back. They switched the deck to a reservations-only system and changed the goal. Instead of chasing the biggest possible number of bodies, they focused on getting more money out of each visitor. A better experience, smarter pricing, fewer lines. The aim quietly shifted from how many people can we cram in to how much is each ticket worth. So even when visitor numbers stayed below the old peak, the revenue per person kept climbing. That's not how you run a sightseeing line. That's how you run a premium product. So how much does this thing actually make today? This is where it gets absurd. In 2025, the observatory pulled in about $128 million in revenue from roughly 2.3 million visitors. After you strip out the costs of running it, that deck threw off around $90 million in pure operating profit in a single year. Now hold that next to the rest of the company. The business that owns the Empire State Building also owns a whole portfolio of other office and retail buildings across New York. Millions of square feet of rentable space. Hundreds of tenants. And out of all of that, the observatory, that one attraction at the top of one building, regularly accounts for roughly a quarter of the entire company's operating profit. Let that sink in. One slice of one building, essentially 2 floors and an elevator ride, generates about a fourth of the profit of a company that owns millions of square feet across the city. If you measured profit per square foot, it wouldn't even be close. The deck would crush every office floor in the entire portfolio. The view is, by far, the most valuable real estate they own. So the obvious question is, why doesn't every building just do this? Because almost no building can. You can't bolt a $90 million attraction onto just any tower. It only works because it's the Empire State Building, an icon people already dreamed about before they ever bought a ticket. The brand is the product, and you can't renovate your way into being a global symbol. But that hasn't stopped people from trying. Once the secret was out, that observation decks are gold mines. Every new super tall in New York started racing to add one. One World Trade Center put an observatory near the top. Hudson Yards built Edge, a deck that juts out into open air 100 floors up. One Vanderbilt opened Summit, a glass and mirror experience designed to go viral on social media. Suddenly, the skyline wasn't just competing for office tenants, it was competing for your ticket. And that's the quiet proof of the whole idea. When every billion-dollar tower in Manhattan decides it needs a paid view at the top, the view was never a gimmick. It was the business model all along. The Empire State Building just figured it out first. But here's the twist. The same thing that makes the deck so powerful also makes it dangerous. An office lease is boring and safe. The rent shows up whether the world is happy or scared. But the deck depends on something far shakier, tourists actually showing up. And tourists are moody. If the global economy wobbles, people cancel trips. If a foreign currency gets weaker against the dollar, suddenly a trip to New York costs visitors from that country a lot more, and fewer of them come. Even the weather matters, because who pays for a view on a day they can't see anything? We just watched this happen in real time. In 2025, the observatory's revenue and profit actually fell because international visitors pulled back. Fewer foreign tourists meant fewer tickets, even though more Americans came. The number of visitors dropped from about 2.6 million the year before down to 2.3 million. The money machine slowed, not because the building changed, but because the world's mood did. That's the strange dual nature of this place. The offices below are slow, steady, and dull. The deck above is explosive, profitable, and jumpy. One pays the bills no matter what. The other can soar or sag depending on whether a family in another country decides this is the year they finally see New York. So let's step back, because this story is bigger than one building. We're taught to see a skyscraper as an office machine. Floors of rent, stacked into the sky. But the Empire State Building quietly proved something else. The most valuable thing in a famous building might not be the space you can lease. It might be the experience you can sell. Those 2 floors at the top aren't an attraction sitting on an office building. They're the main event, and the offices are the supporting act. So next time someone calls it an office tower, you'll know the truth. The Empire State Building is one of the greatest tourist businesses in the world. It just happens to keep about 100 floors of offices underneath, holding up the only floors that really matter. You don't pay rent there, but if you've ever bought a ticket to the top, congratulations. You weren't a visitor. You were the business.